Let's talk about a huge upgrade for your test automation. We are diving into one of the most powerful ways to write clean, professional-grade tests. I'm talking about setup and teardown hooks. Get this right, and I promise you, you'll write better tests and you'll do it faster.
So let me ask you, does this sound familiar? You write a test, it works, great. You write another one, and you're just copying and pasting the exact same setup code. Again, and then again. It's not just a time waster, it is a maintenance nightmare. But don't worry, there is a much, much smarter way.
Okay, let's see this in action. On the left, you've got the old way. See that page.goto line? It's repeated in every single test. That is a massive red flag. Now look to the right, the smart way. We have one single test.beforeach hook that handles all that navigation for us automatically. The result? Well, your tests are clean, they're readable, and they're focused only on what they're supposed to be testing. That's the power of hooks.
To really get this, think of it like this. You wouldn't want a pilot to just glance at a plane and go, yeah, it looks good, before takeoff, would you? Of course not. They follow a strict, mandatory pre-flight checklist every single time. That is exactly what test hooks are for your code.
So yeah, let's really lean into this analogy. The whole pre-flight checklist thing isn't just a clever saying. It perfectly explains how hooks guarantee that every single one of your tests starts in a known, consistent, and safe state.
So here's the bottom line. A pilot's checklist is a set of mandatory actions before every flight. It guarantees consistency and safety. Your test.beforeach hook, it does the exact same thing. It's your automated checklist that runs before every test, making sure you start from the right URL with the right setup every single time. No exceptions.
Okay, so let's make this official. Think of these hooks as your automation co-pilot, handling all the boring but absolutely critical tasks. We're going to focus on the two workhorses you'll be using constantly: test.beforeach for setup and test.afterall for cleanup. First up is test.beforeach. And the name really says it all. It runs before each individual test. This is your go-to for any action that has to happen for every test, but in total isolation. Things like navigating to a URL, clearing out local storage, or setting up a very specific state that shouldn't leak into the next test.
And here it is, the pro tip you can use literally today. Take that repetitive page.goto call and just stick it inside a test.beforeach block, just like you see here. And just like that, every single test in this file will now automatically start on that page. It's cleaner, it's more reliable, and frankly, it's just better engineering.
Now let's flip to the other side of things, test.afterall. The key difference is right there in the name. It runs only once per worker after all the tests in the file are done. This is not for cleaning up after each test. This is for your big, heavy, one-time teardown tasks, like maybe deleting a test user from a database.
This timeline here just lays it all out perfectly. Before all runs once at the very beginning. Then, notice the pattern. Before each, then test 1. Then before each again, then test 2. And finally, after all runs just once at the very end. This really helps visualize the difference between the once per worker hooks and the before each test hooks.
Okay, so hooks are powerful, but it's also really easy to make a few common mistakes. So let's talk about the pitfalls that trip up almost everyone when they're starting out, so you can just skip all that headache.
This right here, this is the golden rule. You have to burn this into your brain. The biggest mistake you can make is thinking that what happens in one test will somehow affect the next. It won't. Playwright gives you a fresh, clean, completely isolated browser context for every single test. And you need to remember, that's a feature, not a bug.
So, let's break down these traps. First, ignoring isolation. Don't expect your cookies or your session storage to just hang around between tests. They won't. Second, misusing test.serial. Don't try to force your tests to run in a certain order just to share state. That's a really fragile way to do things. And finally, don't put cleanup code that only needs to run once into an after each hook. You're just slowing your whole test suite down. Use afterall for that stuff.
All right, so you know the syntax, you know the pitfalls. Now let's talk about mastery. This is about moving beyond just the basics and really using these tools to build a professional, scalable test suite.
So, here are 3 insider tips that will immediately set your work apart. 1. Maximize readability. Push all that setup noise into before each. That way, your test body reads like a simple user story. 2. Leverage that worker scope. For expensive one-time operations like seeding a database, you use before all and after all. And 3, use descriptive titles for your hooks. It makes your test reports so much easier to read and debug.
So let's just boil it all down. If you walk away with just 3 ideas, make them these. 1. Isolate. Every test is its own little world. 2. Don't repeat yourself. If you're copying setup code, you're doing it wrong. Move it to a hook. And 3. Clean up smart. Use the right hook for the job, whether it's after each or after all. Get those 3 right, and you're golden.
And I'm serious. By correctly applying these concepts of isolation and scope, you'll be building tests that are more reliable, more maintainable, and faster than what a lot of engineers out there are doing. This is a truly foundational skill for professional test automation.
So, you've mastered setting up each test in isolation. Great. But what about the ultimate efficiency challenge? How do you log in just once for your entire test suite and have every single test start as an authenticated user, all while keeping that perfect isolation we just talked about? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover in the next explainer. I'll see you there.